Hello. Some pretty impressive games here, I might say. I've now played them all, and I can't wait to see whether the judges are the same opinion as I am or the wrong opinion. We'll see. So I've only been in the industry for the 14 of those years. The latest full-time role that I had was I ran the games business for Rovio for a few years. And at the moment, I'm involved in a few different board of directors. I'm helping a number of different game companies. And I can see that there's a number of different new game companies springing up as we speak. So I'm going to breeze through 20 years of history leading up to where the industry is today. We're going to take a detour and look a little bit at the Finnish mobile games history as well. Finland has played a pretty damn important role in the manifestation of this industry today. And then we're going to discuss a little bit about what it takes to succeed. I know Samuli talked about that earlier today, and Supercell is a manifestation, I think, of amazing success. I'm going to try to anchor as much to the past and the realities of today. So if you want to speak about interesting new technologies, AR, future of esports, blockchain, mixed reality, instant games, or any other cool new things, let's take that outside of the stage. Last disclaimer, I'm an economist by trade, so I'm actually interested in the numbers that you're going to see, and it's not only there to make me look really smart, but I'm actually also interested in it. So this is where it all started, the mobile games industry. Back in 1997, from the hands of software engineer Taneli Armanto in Espoo, Finland. And it's a little bit of a pinch yourself moment for, I think, everyone in the room, because this industry was actually started here in Finland, not very far from here. So you ask yourself, what the hell happened here? How did this happen in 20 years? I say, as an economist, let's follow the money. Let's look at how consumers have and players, fans of the craft, have voted with their money over these years. Let's look at end-user generated revenues. So in here, this is in billions of dollars plotted over time since basically the beginning of mobile games. What happened along the way? This is a really big industry nowadays, and it's grown really, really fast. But as you can see, it wasn't always like that. One could say that the visually rich art of mobile games was really started with iMode. I'm not sure how many of us here have been exposed to the iMode technology, but it was effectively a technology both to distribute games in Japan, also in Europe, based on a subscription model. This here was really a big milestone for commercially distributing mobile games. In Europe and in the US, things took off with the Java technology as well as Brew in the US. Those games were nothing like you see today, and I guess many of us have actually played some of those Java games on their Series 40 and Series 30 Nokia devices back in the days. Who remembers a frog called Crazy Frog? That must be, yeah, there you go. My kids still remind me of Crazy Frog. They want to listen to Crazy Frog in the car all the time. But Jamba, kind of the parent of the frog, they used some particular particular commercial angles to monetizing mobile games and mobile content in general, and they had some really big issues with that. And in fact, what that led to was growth being stalled in especially Europe as a result of some of those practices that they employed. Basically, they were tricking people to subscribe to content that they didn't necessarily want. And one could then categorize that as a little bit of growth pains for the industry in general. This is part of the mobile operator era of mobile games. So you here today, very likely you're not going to be forced to or not going to have the joy of dealing with mobile operators across the world to ensure that end users actually get your content. Now you can reach everybody through the app stores. That wasn't the case. You had to go through mobile operators and sell your games at Webdex. It was very different. Along came the iPhone and changed quite a lot of different things. But it was only a device to begin with. The device was hacked, and the App Store came along only a year later. The Robin Hood moment. Why the Robin Hood moment? Well, 70-30 here was pretty much the opposite way around in the mobile operator era. So the operators walked away with 70% of revenues, pretty much just like that. So that's why it was the Robin Hood moment. And initially, actually, when Apple came out and said that it's 70-30, there was an outcry amongst developers saying, how on earth can you rob us of our money? And then they had to change that statement and turn it around. No, it's you that get 70%. There was a big moment both for the mobile games industry in general, and especially, I want to say, for the Finnish mobile games industry in 2009. Angry Birds came out. That was by no means the first big mobile games hit, but it was the first mobile game that took a life outside of the mobile phone. So all of a sudden you had plush toys and you had hoodies and whatnot built out of the humble origins of a mobile game. A really, really big moment. iPad, 2010. Okay, so here's now a question. Why does it change direction round about that point? Why do end users start spending more money on mobile games after that?
Free to play?
That's correct, free to play. But it was the fact that a little bit before then, in-app purchases were made possible on the devices. They weren't possible before. So that had a huge impact on how consumers then discovered and paid for in mobile games. So all of a sudden, as a result of this, and actually as a result of some of the things that Mikko said earlier, that you ought to target top grossing to be able to be a master of your own success. All of a sudden you could actually become a master of your own success because it wasn't possible to do reasonable high-scale marketing before that. All of a sudden it was possible. And as a result, games like Clash of Clans could be born. The one game that is missing, I think, from this list is Candy Crush. And then you'd have pretty much the three biggest brands out of mobile games in one chart. And ironically, two of them from Finland, one from Sweden, neighboring countries. So this really is the epicenter of mobile games. But let's take a little bit of a closer look at those past few years in isolation. And let's start by the games industry as a whole. So 2015 to 17, the games industry has grown really, really rapidly, from 93 billion to 122 almost. Now the interesting bit here is that growth is actually mostly driven through mobile games. Mobile games is the part in games industry that is really, really, really growing fast. That growth rate of 23.1% is staggeringly fast. Why? Why is this growing so fast? What is the real reason behind it? Well, I think that there's three. You can now reach over 2.5 billion users with low distribution costs, 30% of gross. The touch device is the de facto universal UI. Even though that there is some fragmentation, it's nothing like mobile used to be on the mobile operator era. Killer apps were defined ages ago, which really were a catalyst for driving the adoption for touchscreen devices in general. And last, definitely not least, is that free value prop. For most of the users in mobile games, they don't pay in free-to-play games. As a result, from an end-user point of view, even though revenue has skyrocketed, those games are free. And that has really driven the adoption of mobile games in general. And to really illustrate this point, of 2.5 billion users and Touch ID UI. This is the relative PC market share. This is how year by year, different operating systems on a relative point of view, obviously volumes have increased tremendously over time. So this is a relative picture, how the adoption of different operating systems have taken hold. As you can see, Android tablets, Android phones, and iPhone, they command about 80% of devices categorized as personal computers this day and age. That's quite large, and considering also that the volumes have increased tremendously over time. If you'd plot this in absolute volumes, you couldn't really see the TRS-80. To be honest, I don't even know what TRS-80 is, and now, there you go. So, if we put now games in perspective to a few other industries, this is what it looks like last year end-user generated revenues. Music, worldwide recorded music revenues last year, 17 billion. Movies, worldwide box office, 40 billion. Mobile games, 56. Now, this isn't really a completely fair and accurate comparison. In fact, that's video games in total, 122 roundabout. If we look back 3 years, and look at the growth rates of each of these individual pieces to the puzzle, it looks like this. Music grew 1% from 15 to 17, movies 5, video games in total very fast, 9, but this bit here is incredible. So, in general, you are sitting in a really, really interesting industry right now, and I recommend you to stay there, because this is going to be a great ride. So, that is a great picture, isn't it? It's him. This is Juhannus, Midsummer. So Finland has a pretty damn important part of an important role in the games industry and mobile games industry, as I already said. The whole thing was born here. But let's recount the mobile games history of Finland in a brief way. So, starting with Nokia Snake. This is the country where it all started. This was the first mobile game. Taneli Armanto placed it on the Nokia 6110, available across the globe 20 years ago. Riot Entertainment. This was the first company to offer highly branded mobile games and worldwide online gaming, years before the mainstream could even dream about such services. This was also the first company to burn through more than 20 million euros of VC cash, and not even that was enough. It left 3.2 million in debt as it closed doors. It's quite fitting, considering their slogan, "We don't make games, we create riots." There's a movie about this also. It's called Riot On. I warmly recommend to see it. It's a great piece of entertainment. June 2000, Sumea, this is the predecessor to Digital Chocolate, was founded by this man here and some of his friends. Turku? Was it founded in Turku? Yeah. It was founded in Turku. Eventually, Sumea, as Mikko said, was snatched up by Digital Chocolate, and together with Mr. Goodliving, Sumea was the first to really put a lot of effort on high-quality Java games on mobile phones. Went quality first. 2002, Mr. Goodliving. Now, Goodliving was founded already some years before, but Mr. Goodliving was in fact the first company in Europe to have commercially available mobile phone games. That was also Finland, the first company in Europe to have commercially available mobile phone games. 2003, Rovio was founded by Niklas Hed and two of his buddies. Rovio was eventually to become the first of many things in the industry. So this here is an interesting anecdote story. This was the year I entered myself mobile games, and this is one of the first games I worked on. This was originally called Athens 2004. And Athens was also the place where the Olympics were held in 2004. This was also my first love letter from the International Olympics Committee. No, you cannot call your game Athens 2004 and have a Summer Olympics game without the license. Who would have thought, right? So then what followed, there was a lot of things that happened, but let's call them the tumbleweed years. This is truly the mobile operator era of games. The growth was stagnant, business was difficult. There's a lot of detail I omit here, but it was time for some disruption. And disruption there was, the Nokia N-Gage. I bet a lot of us have played games on N-Gage. Nokia finally, after having released first this device, you remember that? And then they released N-Gage QD. They finally unleashed the N-Gage platform to a grandiose scale fiasco. This was, however, the first true gamers platform on mobile. And this was also a catalyst for many mobile games developers in Finland to learn how to deal with much larger game development budgets. Game development budgets were not in the region of $1 million plus before that, and all of a sudden Nokia was funding games like that. It was a huge, huge learning, very important learning for many games companies here. 2009, December, Angry Birds came out. That was indeed a really, really big moment when that started taking off, and it was pretty much everywhere. I think that they have now about 4 billion downloads or so. Really, really amazing numbers. 2010, something remarkable happened. A humble company was born where you can't wear shoes in the house. Supercell became the #1 mobile games company in 3 years, and it also became Europe's first decacorn. That's a $10 billion startup. It's a new terminology. First startup ever to reach those types of numbers in Europe. And the next years were just taking off. Amazing, amazing years. And we'll talk about a little bit more about that on the next page. And over the past few years, a lot of things have happened. There's been new, huge games coming out. All of a sudden, we have 4 games companies from Finland listed on the stock exchange. Huge hits on the market. And I think that we actually, in Finland, have earned the right to call ourselves an industry. So we can go on and we have an industry of games in Finland. And lastly, monumental, today we have Bit1. And this is where we're making the future of this pretty slide. So, the Finnish games industry, yearly turnover. That there is what I said is taking off like crazy. So it is a big industry. It's actually commanding a fairly sizable portion of mobile games overall. Most of these, actually this slide has advertising revenue tied to it, but all of the end user revenues, that doesn't contain advertising, so there's actually, the industry is a little bit more than that. But this is big, this is a big industry. And I posted a fact on top of it. 18% female workforce, that's much, much bigger than what it is internationally. This is a good thing. This is the sign of a maturing, good industry. Should it be more? Hell yes. And I love the fact that we're actually seeing, in this room, we have a fairly good gender split. This is really to the benefit of everybody in the room, to the benefit of the companies, and also at the end of the day, to the most benefit of end users. With this, we can create better art. It's funny that they're both 18%, I don't know why that is, but 18% of foreign employees. Also quite an interesting fact there. 0.5% value to Finnish GDP in 2016. That needs to be more, so we can call ourselves a big industry in Finland. And lastly, but not least, we're now the biggest, as an industry, we're the biggest tax contributor to the Finnish state in 2017. We're ahead of banks. Who would have thought, right? Okay. So, now we ask ourselves, what does it take to be a mobile game developer? We need to make this meme come back, but I'm doing my share of that. So what does it take to work as a game developer in a professional way? Now, to kick this off, what I've heard a number of times is, I want to make a game that I want to play. Or, I finally want to make a really good free-to-play game. Or, we're making a game for everybody. I'm not sure that that's exactly how you need to approach this industry. And the main reason I think is this. The economics have changed quite dramatically over time, a few times actually in free-to-play, and they might change again. There might be legislation, there's GDPR coming, there's a lot of things. This is a constantly changing industry. But there's a few things here that are just worth pointing out. From an end-user point of view, there's negligible switching costs. What that means is that if you go from a free product to a free product, there's not a lot of friction in between those two things. However, amongst the very high-spending super fans in some of these games, this is quite different. So when you're operating at high scale and at high commercial success, all of a sudden you do have a network that is very valuable, and the switching costs have increased quite a lot. Secondly, there's no extra cost to distribute another copy. So you can distribute how many copies you want, and it doesn't cost any more. Now, this is the very basis of the information economy. That's how the information economy works. Now, as a result of this, there's very low barriers to entry to the industry in general. Now, as a result of number 2 and number 3, coupled with in-app purchases, there effectively is no premium games model on mobile anymore. So if you charge something for your game, for the download of your game, you have close to infinitely less demand of the game. And this is just something that is the reality. Will there be premium games coming out to large success? Yes. But those are anomalies in the system, and there will always be anomalies in the system. The de facto model is free or free to play. So, what the above 4 mean is that it is indeed a little bit of a winner takes a lot, a winner takes the most type of industry. And the importance of talent, really creating amazing games, the importance of IP and a scale is really high. In here, somebody mentioned, Mikko mentioned that there was 750 games coming out at peak on iOS. That's true. This is the number of iOS mobile games submitted per day, plotted over time. So at its peak, there was effectively a new iOS game coming out every second minute. And that's your competition if you go into mobile games. So to succeed, you got to be good. You got to be really, really good. You have to make a really great game. And as Samuli said, there's also more to this than simply creating a great game. He spoke about some of the things you need in addition to a great game. And in here, I think the most important lesson is, if you don't enjoy any of the top grossing mobile games, don't start making free-to-play mobile games. That doesn't mean that you should copy them, but it means that consumers have now voted this to become a $50 billion industry because they like this craft, they like these games. So you need to like these games in order to be able to make one. If you don't, that's fine. If you want to create premium games and try your luck that way around, that's fine. But this is the general rules of the game, and you can also look at other platforms. But that wasn't the topic of this presentation. Now, it isn't necessarily easy to achieve commercial success in mobile games. And that's actually the fun bit at the end. It's hard work, but it's very rewarding. And it's a very, very unique space. And with that I wanted to address by a criminal act. I hate Venn diagrams, but I'm going to draw one. And in our industry, as Supercell and Mikko very, very well point out, it's art. But I believe that in here, this is also, there is data in this. And Supercell has a large team of data scientists. And in here, in the middle part, that's kind of where free-to-play sits. what does this mean? Well, this is an industry that is fundamentally all about the art and about the entertainment. But you mix in this rigorous BI group, rigorous data-driven marketing group. And that means that you have really an eclectic group of people, really an amazing group of people sitting and working on these mobile games. It's an amazing group of individuals that you have around a game when it really comes to life. i.e., you have some of the most amazing people on this planet working in this industry. When it comes to me, that's kind of what I look for in an industry, the people. And this industry has the best. So to round up this presentation, despair not. This is the best industry on the planet, and you should all stick around for the long run. Where else would you find such an amazing group of people as you do in games? And such cool events like this one, Bit1, or Games First, a yearly free conference that Supercell puts on. There's quite a lot of great events in Finland now. I think there was one every week pretty much last year. So while it might not be so easy to create a hugely successful mobile game, it's fun. And that's much thanks to the awesome people in the industry. And lastly, good luck on your journey. Hope that you make it big time. If you want to reach out, that's my email. Thank you. Not sure if there's any questions, anything that I can elaborate upon. Yeah.
Yes, question about the future of the mobile market. Do you think things like the Hatch Entertainment's Hatch could be a new thing, the Netflix of mobile markets? Could it have effects?
Well, I mean, verdict is out. What I do think is that if there's a chance to create some form of a voice for the part that is struggling with getting its voice heard, i.e. premium games, then that kind of serves a really great purpose for the art. And if that works out, then it should be done. Whether it will work out or not, I don't know.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hi, thanks for the presentation. So I'm wondering, I think you said that every second minute a game comes out to the mobile market, and you often hear this, like hundreds of games coming out. And at the same time, you often are told that if you want to make a mobile game or a free-to-play game with any success, you need to use quite a bit of marketing budget. So, and I've noticed when for example, I test quite few games in iOS, and of a specific genre, and there's quite a limited number that I even find by the genre. So, I'm wondering, is there some data on how big portion of these hundreds of games that come to the market every day use any money on the marketing and on their visibility?
Probably not off the top of my head would I have an answer to that. But what you can certainly say with a very large level of certainty is that when you go through the top grossing lists, if you go down to 200 or beyond to 1,000, 95% of those would all be deploying marketing initiatives around their games. The user acquisition debate is something that goes on in the industry, and it's in any industry really. You'd like to come to a conclusion where you can market something profitably. You put in $1 and you get $2 back. Wow, great. The thing here is that the further you do that, the more you do that, the more the unit cost increases. So the number one game on the grossing charts in the US, they would pay a lot more per install that they achieve through marketing means than the number 2,500. That's just because of the way the global advertising auction ecosystem works. So you can create some level of success, commercial success, without any marketing really. But to achieve really, really high level of success, you need to be a bit of an anomaly. I'm not sure how much Pokemon Go has spent on marketing, but then again, they have one of the biggest brands on the planet tied to that game. I'm not sure how much Fortnite, for example, is spending in mobile marketing. Probably not a lot, but it's a huge anomaly, right? If you want to achieve really high scale commercial success in mobile games, then at some point you're going to look at this because it makes commercial success sense to look at it.
Thank you.
Good. Well, thank you very much.